I just thought you were gonna go like in terms of like canonical, that his twin sister is the one that eventually is going to give birth to
The actual
uh
Antichrist?
no to the rebirth of Jesus Christ in part three, because that's the child he can never find. It was always like um it was always escaping him. He can never lock it down. So then he decided to kill every child born during a certain time period because he was like, it has to be them. And then
Which is very biblical, because isn't that what like King Herod kind of tried to do with Jesus? He was like, any babies born in this period, the prophecy says is going to kill me, so I'm just going to kill them all. But he missed the one, the OGJC.
This July, let he who is without sin kick the first ass.
First Omen, starring Nell Tiger, Sonia Braga, and Ralph Ineson, written by Tim Smith, Keith Thompson, and Arkasha Stephenson, who also directed. The things we do aren't always pleasant, but they are in the name of God.
There are two churches. One follows God, and the other follows something else. Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of How Did You Like That Movie? We are continuing on with our Hot Ghouls of Halloween series. Our hot ghoul today is not a guest, but we are going to be talking about director Arkasha Stevenson's film, The First Omen. This is her first feature film after coming out of television. So, Scott, take it away.
Yeah. So basic, rundown is, this movie is all about the birds and the bees on how to make an Antichrist. With the Omen series in general, I'm not really like a big fan of it because I always think it's I've never found it to be horror per se for myself. It's always been like a thriller where and then if you're looking kill wise, it's always like accidental things that make accidents that people die off of to avoid what's the word I'm looking for, suspicion. But I always thought that Final Destination always did this a lot better. But yeah, like it's for first feature, it's all right. It was done, like I have no complaints in terms of the cinematic style and choices made. It's just kind of, at no point I was ever really interested in going back to find out who Damien's real baby mama and baby daddy really were.
Yeah, doesn't it? It kind of feels so. Obviously, okay. So those who are not aware, this is it's a prequel to the 1976 The Omen. Probably it's all listed as like one of the scariest films or creepiest films of all time. It's in that kind of Halloween, The Exorcist, Rosemary's Baby, like classic, like even Hitchcock. Uh, it feels like the film nobody asked for though. Like, how many Omens are there now? Like, is this like the fifth in the series or the sixth in the series?
Well, there was
Okay, well,
four. No, there was four in the original and a
yeah,
remake, and then
yeah.
this one.
So that's five. So this is the sixth installment in this series since the 70s. Yeah, man. Like again, and I think that, and we've talked about this on this show, is that people will often want to do an IP, right? Like it's an Omen, it's this, it's Ghostbusters, it's whatever, because there's a fan base built in, or it's got a certain amount of legs to it already. The problem with that is that you also create a structure that especially, I mean, unless you're Halloween and then you just kind of do whatever the fuck you want, but because it's supposed to be the prequel to the Omen, you've got some stuff that you almost have to lead into, right? So you can't just make a possession baby bearing story, which I believe they called Immaculate. And we can talk about that a bit too. They came out, I believe, the same year with Sydney Sweeney.
I think the same time. I think those were both.
Oh, they actually
in
released
theater.
in parallel?
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got basically a structure that's already built in, and you can only deviate so more. But also, again, like you said, like why do you need to know how Damien, which is the baby or the child, I guess, in the original Omen, was conceived? Like, what? I mean, this could have been a short film, to be honest.
Well, I think like to me, I enjoyed that third act when it actually started tying into the original Omen. Like once you get to the part where Damien's conceived, they're in that car, and then you see that like little nod to the original with the picture of Gregory Peck, and everything in there. Like you go, and I like that. But then if it ended there, I would have been fine. But when you go to like right before the end credit scene, and it's like spoilers, you find out the mom, the baby twin, and the other conceived child that could have bore the Antichrist are all still alive.
So I have speculation why that scene's there. Do you? I'm assuming you can guess why that's probably there.
Well, I'm guessing that's where, but what I'm saying is like when you go to original Omen, Omen 2, Omen 3, there's nothing that ever nods to these people before. And the worst part is because they reconned it where, in the original, the mother was the jackal.
Jackal! It's a jackal! It looks like a jackal! 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 It's a jackal! Jackal! Time! It wasn't right the first time you said it. Why the hell would it be right the next 10 times?
Not the father. So that to me kind of is a recon you didn't really, I don't know if need or want, because then it just makes that father Brennan guy like, I was there at the birth. Yeah, I saw the fucking jackal give birth to him. Then you're like, no.
But again, I think that scene, because you didn't even bother to answer my fucking question, is they're thinking like, now you can, because you've got the daughter, because technically they were born as twins, like male and female twins, is that you can now have a whole spin-off where you go, because Father Brennan, who's played by Ralph Ineson, I don't know. He, if you've seen Harry Potter, he plays Amicus Crow or Caro, but he also works with Robert Edgers quite a bit. He was in The Witch, The Northman, and he's going to be in Nosferatu, and he's in the upcoming Frankenstein movie by Benicio del Toro. Him showing up and being like, they're going to come for you. They're looking for you. You're like, oh, okay. And she's, the mom's there with the shotgun or whatever, that's Margaret, played by Nell Tiger Free. You're like, okay, so this is just in case you want to do some more movies. You don't even have to go down the Damien. You almost have opened up the IP, right? Because now you're not, like I opened the show with, you're not locked into, we got to do anything around Damien. You can just have this, the Catholic Church is hunting them down. And, we're going to have, a car chase scene through the streets of Rome and whatever, right?
Well, okay. I just thought you were going to go like in terms of like canonical, that his twin sister is the one that eventually is going to give birth to
the actual Antichrist.
No, to the rebirth of Jesus Christ in part 3, because that's the child he can never find. It was always like, it was always escaping him. He can never lock it down. So then he decided to kill every child born during a certain time period, because he was like, it has to be them. And then
which is very biblical, because isn't that what like King Herod kind of tried to do with Jesus? He was like, any babies born in this period, the prophecy says is going to kill me, so I'm just going to kill them all. But he missed the one, the OG JC.
This July, let he who is without sin kick the first ass.
That's the problem.
Yeah, like a Highlander. I don't know, man. Listen, this film was originally supposed to go directly to Hulu, and then when Disney picked up Fox's Studios, all their IP, they decided that they needed something to release in the theater because of the actor strike and the writer strike and all that type of stuff. And no offense, it feels very content-y. Like, we needed content, we made content. here is your content, milady. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I said, like, well, did you ever, like, watching this, did it make you want to watch the original? Like, did it make you want to go and like go through this franchise, right?
No, because it didn't really like, other than me knowing it's called The First Omen, it doesn't really until the very
Well,
end.
I was gonna say, I think everybody going in would know it's called The First Omen.
No, what I mean is outside of that, like it doesn't really, because it's so far before between like when the Omen picks up, because it's basically the end of this film is the baby, right? The baby is born, the baby is delivered to the ambassador, and then that baby's gonna go off and become Damien in the First Omen or in the original Omen, right? So it doesn't tie it in a way that makes me want to watch the Omen. I want to like rewatch the Omen just because the Omen's, this just reminded me, I'm like, oh yeah, it's a pretty fucking solid film. Outside of that, you could have called this Devil Baby. You could have called it Immaculate. You know what I mean? Except this has one less Sydney Sweeney in it, right? So have you seen Immaculate?
No, I haven't watched it yet.
So
It's
I
on
thought
my
about
list
watching
to
it for
watch
this, and then I just, to be honest, didn't get around it. So if anybody who's listening that's seen both of these films, or you've seen the Immaculate and then you watch this film, hit us up in the comment section on wherever you're listening to this, because we definitely want to know what you think about the parallels between these two films.
Well, I think, well, I was gonna say, like,
yeah.
yeah, like, well, what you're saying in terms of parallel, I think them doing like the nods to the original Omen, kind of like, you're like, what's the point, kind of thing, right? Like when she's like, the one nun's like about to like burn herself, and she's like, this is all for you.
Yeah.
And I'm
As soon
like,
as I saw
no.
it, so because there's the one of the probably most iconic scenes in the original Omen, definitely the first Omen, is that suicide, right?
Mhm.
And so I saw, because you know what, first thing I saw too is like, so you see the nun standing on the balcony or whatever, and there's a guardrail there, except for the section she's about to jump. I'm like, why the fuck is there a section of handrail that is just not there? Like, that was like the first thing I noticed. I'm like, she doesn't even have to climb over the thing. It's like it's set up for people to jump off of, like, wee. But I saw that and I was like, oh, here we go. Like, this is the nun. I do like how they gave their own twist to it. You know what I mean?
I guess.
With the
Right?
fire?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, I guess. But yeah, like, I thought that was the thing, like, with my issue with it. And like, this is like, don't get me wrong, like, this is an all right, like, movie to watch on Halloween. Just turn your brain off. You don't really have to like think of much, right? Because they do force feed you a lot. There is a lot of, oh, you didn't know, like, oh, you think it's this, it's that, we're chasing after this person, but it's actually this person, kind of thing. Like, especially like when you get to the point where, when they do the nod to the second movie where the person gets cut in half, and then you're just like, okay, so this random club guy is now part of this like church cult. So
Well,
was
yeah,
he
because
a
then
priest?
later
Yeah,
when you
because
see her being like bred by the demon, he's there. Right? Like, he's in the background, and you're like,
yeah,
oh, okay, so was he coerced? Was the whole thing a setup? The whole disco scene, like, was that a setup by the other? She isn't quite a nun yet. What's that? Maria, is it Luz? Luz? Maria, played by Maria Caballo. Everybody, listen, everybody knows where I'm awful at saying people's names. Anyway,
yeah, I know what you're saying.
like, so was she in on it the whole time? Do you think she was in on it like the other young nun? You think she was in on the whole time?
Yeah, because technically everybody in that monastery were all for that
project.
With the exception of the oh my god, with
Father
the exception
Gabriel,
of
young guy?
Margaret and Father Gabriel, because they're both newcomers who just got assigned to those churches. Well, except for Margaret, she got brought in by the cardinal.
Yeah, played by
right?
Bill Nighy.
Bill Nighy the Science Guy.
Who's a Bill? Yeah, like he. It's weird because like I actually at first thought that he was a not great casting, because he's got this kind of easy. Bill Nighy always has this kind of like easiness to him, like, you know, whether you're watching him in Evil Love Actually or Shaun of the Dead or Hot Fuzz, he's got this kind of groovy. And I've got my own personal story about him actually. And so I was like, oh, he was almost a little too carefree, but then at the end, I'm like, oh, they actually want him to be like that. Like he's supposed to be the guy that's like, even though you're basically this like Satan spawner, I'm here to take care of you or whatever. And I mean, his murder, like when he dies, that's sick. That was a sick, like I was not expecting that to happen. There's definitely some really good set pieces. And again, the thing looks gorgeous. That's one thing I do want to give credit to. Remember, this is Hot Ghouls of Halloween. We're not supposed to just like take a female director and just like eviscerate her, as you've already brought up at the top of the show. For a first feature film, she did a great job as far as like the construction of it. I think the script needs some work. I think it's a bit long. I think that you probably could have tightened it up sooner. It's almost 2 hours. It probably should have been about 90 minutes. It feels sluggish for I would say at least the first and into the second act. It feels slow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I think like the thing that worked for me for the original, like for the Richard Donner version, is everything was sudden. There weren't any real jump scares. It was like it happened. It was like quick, and then you're just taken aback, like holy fuck, right? That guy's head just got chopped off, or you're like holy shit, that, you know, with the exception of Father Brenneman's death, which you is literally alluded to right at the beginning of this movie with Charles Dance, who I gotta say, like, you know, it seems like you gotta have him as a bad guy, like in almost every movie now.
He's great in Game of Thrones, man.
But he's my favorite Satan. Like he scared the shit out of me as a kid, man. Golden Child, that guy fuck shit up there for Eddie Murphy, right? Like
it's interesting
he was
that
scary as
playing
hell.
a priest. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but yeah, man, I'm telling you, like he fucked shit up. He was scary as shit. You're talking about gateway horror, man. Golden Child, that shit was fucked up, which technically could have been this too. But
wait,
yeah,
you're
like
Golden Child with like Eddie Murphy, are you?
Yeah, man.
Oh, okay. Just making sure we're talking about the same Golden Child.
Right. Well, technically, if you take Golden Child, it's almost the same as this or the Omen, except it's the reverse, right?
Yes.
Right. Like the child brings everybody to good, but Charles Dance technically played Satan, right? Because I think like that kill in the beginning, like Dance's kill was fucking good. Like it's
again, except exactly what you just talked about the original Omen. It was telegraphed way too much. They even did slow motion.
Like, oh yeah, because it's literally Brenneman watching his own death too, right? Like, but the thing I liked about it, because of the way it was constructed, right? You thought, oh, they're doing a nod, but it's actually not going to happen because he does like walk away, right?
Yeah. Like, that was cool, right? Because it's like you expect the pole to go like right through him or something.
Yeah.
And then that doesn't happen. And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. And yeah, you're right. You feel like it's just a nod, and then they're kind of subverting that nod, and then it doesn't truly subvert it, right? So people need to go watch the film in order to understand what we're talking about. So maybe we should just start talking about the actual stuff that we can talk about.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that to me is what kind of was the hindrance of this movie. Was it like, if you're gonna make it your own, right? Like I don't think it needed all of the nods to the original.
Yeah, just make like a straight up possession baby, not possession, but like Antichrist birthing film, and just at the end it's like, and the baby's Damien, boom, done.
Yeah, like I said, like I enjoyed, like once it got to that the third act after the birth, and it start tying it in, I'm like this is technically what you should have been doing. Like you should have not only the birth, like if you're gonna do like the birth of Damien, fine, but also why choose Gregory Peck? Why was that ambassador so important, right? Like why wasn't it the choosing of it?
Where
Why not?
basically the birthing of the baby is actually only part of the story. You
Right.
want to see like, so the Catholic Church births the Antichrist in order to like drive people back to the church, but also the search for who's the perfect parent to take this baby into the new world. And new world, I mean like United States, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that, because yeah, like that just gets tied up. But also like I said, like if that's the motivation of this church, which you never see in the original or the sequel or the third movie, right?
Mhm.
Because it's never like, oh my god, everybody's coming to Christianity now. Like no one know anybody, like in all these movies, anybody that knows who Damien is gets killed. So it's never like, oh my god, the Antichrist is here, right? So that's the thing, like in terms of
Well, I mean, I guess
motivation.
the argument you could make is the Catholic Church tried to do something, it just didn't work the way they thought it was going to work. You know what I mean?
I guess I don't know, but yeah, my guess will be, because I think this made money, if I'm not mistaken.
So it had a $30 million budget, which again, $30 million for, and again, Arkasha is not a brand new director. So she worked on TV. She did Channel Zero. She did an episode of brand new cherry flavor, Legion and Briar Patch. She also has two like award-winning shorts, Vessels and Pineapple. Pineapple looks really cool. I'm gonna try and find a link to it to throw in the show notes. It's like got a creepy horror mine kind of vibe. Mine, not mime. And I think she did like a decent job for like a first feature. But she gets $30 million. like that's
Yeah,
a
that's
pretty
low
decent
budget.
chunk of, yeah, but that's still a big chunk of money to do your first feature with. Like she got to shoot in Rome. I mean, her cast is solid. So yeah, it did 54 million in the box office, but again, if it was not really expected to be a theatrical run, I don't know. Do you remember seeing a lot of media for this? Because I mean, if that's true, then we're into 60 million just to break even. But again, if it was meant just for the streaming service as content anyway, this is available on Disney Plus, so they're able to just kind of like, there you go, sign up for Disney Plus and make their money back that way, I guess, right?
Yeah,
Disney's got more money than fucking God anyway.
so what you're saying is those priests are really executives for Disney. Like this is what we need. We need more IP.
Listen, I would not put it past the Disney Corporation. This is where I'm about to get sued for bringing back the Antichrist just to help create like some type of market share or something like that. Like, yeah, man. I mean, it did okay. I mean, it didn't bomb in the box office. It is creepy at times too. Like, there's some decent. I watched it at home on Disney Plus. I think seeing it in the theater would have been a decent. It's like a 5 out of 10 or maybe a 6 out of 10 as far as watchability. But in a theater, I think that it would have felt better. You know what I mean? Like, again, that dark room, all the people, the few jump scares that they are solid. And again, there's like that birthing scene is graphic. Like, and that's the one, it's got an R rating, right? So
yeah, you're talking
like
the first birthing scene.
Yeah, where the like claw
with the
comes
hand
out. Well, and I mean, even the birthing scene, the cesarean birthing scene is pretty intense too. But like, yeah, where the like hand comes out. Meh.
No one can stop the claw! No one can stop it!
But yeah, like I said, one thing I do really like about this is the cinematography. So Arkasha was originally, before she got into filmmaking, she was a photojournalist. And you can see those sensibilities, like her DOP, Aaron Morton. He also worked on Abigail, which looks beautiful. The Evil Dead, the Alvarez one in 2013, which is fucking insane. But he also came out of like Spartacus, Orphan Black. Like, he's got a really, really, really big portrait. So he's very, very good cinematography, does creepy cinematography really well. And like that bridge between like art house and just cinematics.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, like there's lots of stuff that like looks really good. The costuming is fantastic. They had gone with, so one of the things I noticed right away is like the little kids in the orphanage. I'm like their costuming is very cool, and the costume designer actually went with more of like a 1940s, 1950s style costuming, just because they thought that it was like more striking. You know what I mean? even though the film's supposed to be like a 70s kind of era. Well, obviously it's 70s because Damien has to grow up into be a child in the 70s, right? So did you like, was there any scenes you particularly liked? Like,
yeah, like I liked well, the birthing scene. That
I'll
one
be
was
honest, I couldn't
okay.
even totally watch that. I turned my head.
Excuse me.
And you think that's funny? Like funny like a clown or
No.
what?
I'm having an attack.
The power of Christ compels you.
Wrong movie, wrong series. No, the one that I liked was right after that car crash when she like starts like contorting, like, and then the baby's like coming out kind of thing.
Yeah, like her water breaks or whatever, and she's kind of like,
And then it's just like growing and growing, and her body is like, and it like she just like turns into like this like animal kind of thing where she's like gnawing and like fucking growling and barking and shit like that.
which to
like,
me, to be honest, the movie that we don't like to cover because it's scary as fuck, The Exorcist, it reminded me a lot of the like sound design in The Exorcist, where they use the like wild dogs to like like it felt like that was kind of the inspiration for her vocalization.
yeah, well, quite possibly, but in the Omen series, there's a lot of Rottweilers that are in that movie as demon dogs to protect Damien. So like to me, just seemed like it was a nod to that. But
Okay. You definitely have more a better understanding of the Omen series than I do. So,
well, I did watch them all after watching this movie, right?
holy
And
shit! Look at Scott. Chris is phoning it in, and Scott is the professional.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, I've watched the original a couple times, but it's been years since I've watched it, right? So I wanted to kind of go back, kind of thing, to tie it. That's why I was like, there's a lot of stuff in this one that kind of don't make sense now with the original. But like the one I was most disappointed in was like part 3 with fucking like you have Sam Neill as Damien as an adult, right? And to me, I just thought it was wasted because he's such a good fucking actor and he can play an asshole so fucking well, right? So, but yeah, like that's why, like to me, this was like I don't want to say fan service, but it was Star Wars 3, like 3, like this was Revenge of the fucking Sith.
Tread lightly.
Where they're just like, fuck it, let's just tie this shit together right now at the end, and you're like, here's a baby, his name will be Luke.
I'm gonna kill him. I'm about to kill him.
So do you again, after we've talked about the ending of this film, do you think they're going to try and do more with the sister, the mom, and I guess the other Satan spawn thing?
Like, I think there's an opportunity, right? But again, I think it all depends on what this box office, like reception wise, I think on Rotten Tomatoes and everything, like this is deemed well, right? Like I didn't actually check.
I mean, the 70, so it's got a 70% from the audience. The critics gave it an 82. I do think that the critics, when I looked over just some of the critics' notes, it was stuff like, again, she's getting points for being a first-time director, the aesthetic. It is considered kind of like female body horror at points. Would you agree that it's body horror?
Maybe, because yeah, like if you have the fire scene and fucking coming out, that birthing scene,
Yeah,
quite possibly, right? Like that reminded me more of like Society back from the 80s kind of thing, that kind of movie. Yeah, possibly. Like I didn't think about it until you said it, but yeah, I think it could go that way.
So the main character, Margaret, is played by Nell Tiger Free, as I said earlier. She also plays in The Servant. She plays Leanne. And as soon as I read that, I was like, yeah. Like that was a great like lead in role to this, because she's like, they make her creepy at times and very plain at times. And even when she's like dressed up for the disco, she looks very out of place, right? Like like she looks good, but it's almost like she was able to resonate that her character is uncomfortable in that space. You know what I mean? Versus, like I said, Maria Caballero, who plays Lutz, who's like a very sexy Italian female actor. And so when she's at the disco, she feels very much in her element. You know what I mean? But I thought that Nell's acting performance in this was very, very good. Yeah. And that's the thing, like the direction of this film, again, I think that's got a script issue. And again, I think that handcuffing it, they should have called it something else, which then maybe you don't get $30 million to make the film. But by calling it something else, you just open the whole thing up. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to give nods to stuff. You don't have to try and end up in a place. You can just go, where does the story go? You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I get what you're saying. Like hypothetically, let's say we'll just call it Immaculate because you really like calling it Immaculate.
Just call it Satan Spawn or something like that.
No, what I'm just saying, like not even that. You're just calling it Immaculate kind of thing, right? Now you watch this movie and then all of a sudden you get to that third act and you see that fucking picture of Gregory Peck, and then you're like, holy shit, I've been watching a fucking Omen movie, right?
I like that.
Right? 'Cause like technically, but by going in knowing it's the first Omen, and then you're just watching these nods kind of thing, you're like, okay, it's just like, connect the dots, right? You're just making, what was that thing we used to do when we were kids, like the draw by numbers, right?
Yeah, pay by numbers or whatever.
Yeah, and then by the end you're just like, oh look, it's Damien. But yeah, like if you went in without really knowing this was an Omen movie, I think it would have resonated more, and then there would have been more kind of word of mouth, and it might have kind of done better, right? Because
you just go make a good film that has the subject matter, and I love it. I actually like what you're talking about, where you just slide in Gregory Peck's like photo at the end, near the end, and people are like, shit, oh my god, it's Damien. Like it's yeah, that's a great. But again, because if you do that, then you just got to hope that people get the reference. The advantage of that, though, is that then nobody's trying to like piece the thing together. They're just watching the movie, right? So
yeah, I agree, because that's the thing. Like for anything, like I know the Omen is, the Omen is an IP people know about, but it's not like
it's not Halloween.
Well, not only that, but it's not like, it's not one that people are craving. Let's say it's not like popular. I don't want to say popular enough, but it's not one that people are like, fuck, I can't wait for another fucking, it's been what, a decade since the remake. It's the same as, the Exorcist Believers, right? Like you go in, but then by tying it so much and trying to make it something that's tied to a film that is revered, you're putting too much expectations on these people to try to deliver.
Yeah, and the Exorcist Believer is fucking awful, but it's even more awful for like lack of use of good English language, because it's called The Exorcist, and it's specifically supposed to be tied to the original Exorcist. So yeah, you're just like, okay, so you took like one of the scariest movies ever made, and you did not reach that height. You know what I mean? It's like you have a little more leeway with Halloween. You're allowed to just kind of walk around in the muck and do what you want to do. But stuff like The Exorcist, like I said, I don't think they're making. Didn't they actually stop? They're not going to do. They were supposed to do a bunch of Exorcists.
They signed up for a trilogy, but now it's canned. That trilogy's canned, and they're bringing in Michael Flanagan.
Yeah, and he wants to just make the scariest film ever, he said. So
yeah, he just wants to make a fucking scary movie. All right.
Anyway, I mean, is there anything else you really want to say? Who do you recommend this? Do you recommend the movie? If so, who do you recommend it for?
Yeah, like I said, it's you can turn your brain off and just watch it. Like if you're not going in with too much high expectations, like it's decent. Aesthetic is good. I'd say the atmosphere is good. Like it does like give you like creepy qualities, especially that one fucking scene with like the fly or the spider that fucking goes into her eye. You're just like, fuck.
Oh, and the habit hanging on the like, I'm like, and it's the cool thing about the jump scares in this is like you see them, you're like, there's gonna be a jump scare here. You're well aware there's gonna be a jump scare, and they do execute it in a way I was like, oh fuck. I'm not a good metric for that though, because I am a super scaredy cat. But the habit when it's hanging on the wall or whatever, you're like, fuck, something's gonna happen with that. I know so, and then even when it happened, I was like, I think do you think you should watch this and then watch The Omen, the original, like as a double feature?
Well, I was gonna say I did.
And you did it? Does it work?
It somewhat, but like I said, like it does like you watch this and then you watch the original, and this contradicts a lot from the original, right? So
well, that's why I'm suggesting you watch this first and then watch the original, because I think if you watch the original and then you go backwards, things don't always work, right? So at least you can enjoy the First Omen, then go watch the original Omen. And if you're like, oh, that doesn't really work, the film that you're not wrecking is the OG. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you got anything else, Scott, before we go?
No, that's all I gotta say.
All right. Well, I'm going to finish with Catherine Bray from Empire Magazine. For veteran viewers who've seen it all before, it's not exactly the second coming, but novice, non-sploitation audiences might find that this habit forming a stylish enough entry initiation.
And that is our wrap for the day. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends. If you want to get a hold of us, reach us at the www.howdyoulikethatmovie.com.
Hey, so I didn't actually get to tell my little story about Bill Nighy. I feel like it's not going to be as impressive to anybody listening as it was to me. So I was living in Victoria, British Columbia. I'm in a restaurant called Pagliacci's with a friend of mine. And this is like, he had not done, because I think he's in Mamma Mia, right? Like, he is in Mamma Mia. This is before Mamma Mia shot. And I'm sitting there having breakfast, and he's there with a young woman. It might have even been his daughter. And I was like, to my friend, I'm like, oh, yo, this is like Bill Nighy. And this is like before like the kind of cell phone cameras that we have now. So I couldn't even do like a undercover fucking photo, but I can hear him. So I'm listening into his conversation, and he's like, yeah, my agent has called me and he wants me to do this ABBA movie. Oh, I can't stand ABBA. He's got that very distinct like cadence to his voice or whatever. And I was like, holy shit. And then I see him pick up his like Armani blazer and walk out of the place. And then later, does he not do fucking ABBA movie?
Yeah, that wasn't good at all.
Production by Rod Shaver, Vader Monkey Productions.